In today's video, we're going to talk about agency. We'll talk about how agency is created, how it is terminated, and we'll also cover what level of authority do you have based on the agency relationship you have with your clients. So grab something to write with, grab a notebook, grab a pen, and let's jump right in and talk about agency. But before we do, I am Nonia, your real estate tutoress. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Illinois, as well as a licensed instructor. On this channel, I bring the best tips and tools getting your real estate license. I also answer any questions you may have about the process. If you're new to this channel, welcome, and do consider subscribing. If you're returning and you haven't yet subscribed, come on now. Hit the subscribe button for me, okay? Thank you. Let's dive in and talk about agency. What is agency? Let's start there. Agency is, think about just a relationship. One person is working on behalf of another person. So, usually in real estate, there's an agreement between the two parties. One is the agent. The agent is the one representing the client, or the client may be called the principal. All right, so agency, just think relationship. And we're going to talk next about how agency is created. Agency can be created either through what's called express agency or implied. For express agency, think about the word express. I'm expressing myself. So you're either creating this orally or in writing, but it's stated, hey, you're my agent, or you're my client, I'm your agent. And best to have it in writing so there's no confusion, right? And that's why in Illinois, if we're having any exclusive brokerage agreements, they must be in writing. For implied agency, for example, think about walking into a grocery store. It's implied that if you pick something up, you're going to pay for it before you walk out of the store. So you're not just going to pick stuff off the shelf and walk away without paying. That's theft. So in implied agency, it's not clearly defined, but through a person's actions, you are assumed to be in an agency relationship. For example, you see a property that has an open house. You show up to the open house, you like the property, you talk to the agent, and the agent there does not represent the seller. So the agent there is like, I can help you write the offer and get you this property, yada, yada, yada. They're like, oh, really? Yeah, sure. I can do that for you. All right, well, let's go and get this thing started. Then you guys just begin working together. Or you have a friend, you guys are at coffee, you just tell them, hey, I'm trying to buy real estate. And one thing leads to the other. Next thing, they're writing an offer for you, but you guys don't have anything official in writing, or it was never really discussed. All right. So in Illinois, agency can be created either expressed or implied. Now, after agency has been created, you guys are working together. So how do we terminate or how do we end this agency relationship? The first one on the slide here is the one that you want. When you've done what you were hired to do. For example, they hired you as their agent to help them find a home. You've done that. So the agency relationship has ended. Or they hired you to help them sell their property. Same thing, or look for a rental. The second one, death or incapacity of either the client or the sponsoring broker. Now, on the exam for this second one, you may see them tell you, or the death or incapacity of one of the parties. If you get that on the exam, be careful that you remember that one of the parties would be your client or the sponsoring broker, not the agent or the sponsored licensee that's working with that client. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say on the exam they tell you agent Tony is the designated agent representing client Mary. Agent Tony works for ABC Realty. All right, so ABC Realty is the sponsoring broker in this situation. Tony is the designated agent. Mary is the client. All right, let me just say one thing real quick before I continue. If you're like me, you may need to be writing this stuff down so you can stay on track. All right, so feel free to pause, rewind a little bit, get yourself some paper and pen, and follow me on this scenario. All right. So Tony is the agent, Mary is the client, and ABC Realty is the sponsoring broker for Tony. All right, Tony gets into a car accident and is in a coma. Right, he's gonna make it, but he's right now in a coma, so he is incapacitated. Does this affect the brokerage agreement? Yes or no? The answer is no, because the agreement is not between Tony. The agreement is between ABC Realty and the client Mary. All right. The only time the agreement is terminated or affected is if it's between, if anything happens to Mary or ABC Realty. So remember that the parties in that contract, in the agency or brokerage agreement, are the client and the sponsoring broker. All right, let's come back. How is agency terminated? All right, so we talked about the first two. The next one, if the property is condemned, destroyed. Condemnation, if you remember, condemnation is the act of eminent domain. Now, if I said eminent domain and you don't know what I'm talking about, write that down and go look it up. It's probably one of my vocabulary videos, but look it up in your textbook as well. When the agreement expires, so if you've been studying, you've realized that with the brokerage agreements, especially the exclusive brokerage agreements, there always has to be an expiration date. So if you have that agreement and the expiration date reaches and there is no home purchase or sale that has happened for whatever reason, the agreement ends. Both parties can always choose to extend, but if the agreement is expired, it is expired and the agency relationship is terminated. And then the final three, mutual agreements. Of course, if things are not going well, you guys could decide on your own to split. If there's a breach of contract, and by operation of law, bankruptcy, foreclosure, one of those things happening where the property cannot be sold, or the property cannot be sold, or that person cannot purchase at that point. So these are some of the reasons agency is terminated. Now, when you have an agency relationship, right, the agent is the person representing the client or the principal. Now, what authority does this agent have? And here are some examples of the types of agent you are, and each example shows you the limitation to your authority. So we're going to start with universal, and as the word goes, universal is broad, meaning everything, right? Universal agent is someone who can pretty much do everything the client or principal can do for themselves, similar to a power of attorney. All right, so they can make decisions for you, sign documents on your behalf, all of those things. That is a universal agent. Parents for their children would be example two of universal agent. Now we're going to go a little more narrow and come down to general agent. With general agent, you're able to do a broad range of things for your client, but it's usually in one particular business area or activity. An example of a general agent, think about property managers, as I have there on the screen. Property manager with a landlord. The property manager is able to collect rents from the tenants. They're also able to find new tenants. They're able to make certain repairs to the property, manage the building, perhaps hire certain individuals to do jobs at the property, all on behalf of the landlord, and then do some accounting and reporting of things to the landlord as well. But it's all for that one particular property, or maybe they have an agreement for multiple properties. So you're seeing how this property manager is able to do a couple of things for the owner, but just in that space of that rental property. And then the second example, there is an agent and their sponsoring broker, or a sponsored licensee and their sponsoring broker. So the sponsored licensee is going out and getting business on behalf of the sponsoring broker, and they can function only in that space. So the sponsored licensee cannot go and buy a house on behalf of the sponsoring broker. They don't have that authority, right? It's outside of doing real estate transactions in the sponsoring broker's name. Hope that makes sense. So we talked about universal, we talked about general. Let's go a little more niche. Special agent. Here, the agent is only authorized to do one specific task or operate in one specific business transaction. For example, you're hired to help me find a house. You're finding me a house doesn't mean you're also going to help me sell my current house. We need to have a separate agreement for that as well. Okay? So, special agents, think of yourself when you begin to work with clients. You're going to have that special agent relationship with your client. Your sponsoring broker as well will have that special agent relationship with your client. A designated agent is also going to be you, the licensee that is authorized by the sponsoring broker to represent that client in that particular transaction. So we have a brokerage agreement, for example, with a seller. Then the brokerage, the sponsoring broker, assigns you as the agent designated to work with this client to help them sell their home. So that's how you can think about designated agent. How I like to think about it is I'm the designated agent for my clients. Okay, I am the designated agent for my clients. On the on the brokerage agreement, I am listed there as the designated agent. And the agreement, remember we just talked about it. The agreement is between the sponsoring broker and the seller or the buyer. I hope I was able to simplify the process for you and you found the lesson on agency helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. I also have another video where I talk about non-agency. So when you don't want to have an agency relationship with someone, what do you do? So I will link that video right here so you can jump onto that one and learn more about agency. All right, so I will see you there. Just click right here and jump in there.